Yo ho everybody, and welcome to another edition of Yinzer on Hockey. Before we begin, make sure you go down below, hit that like button, click the subscribe button, and make sure you click that little bell so you stay up to date on all the off-season happenings. So today, I wanted to do something I'm not very fond of. I'm going to do a top 10 list. I'm going to rank my top 10 Pittsburgh Penguins of all time. Please keep in mind this is an entirely subjective list. My opinion may not match yours. Feel free to disclose your top 10 Penguins of all times in the comments below. We can have a healthy, productive conversation in the comments below. So let's go ahead and get right into it. Couple of honorable mentions for me. Chris Letang, Alexei Kovalev, Larry Murphy, and Kevin Stevens are a few notable omissions of mine on this list. So, it's just it's hard finding out where everybody fits in these top 10s and where you rank them, and everybody's is going to be different, but those are a few guys that I think are just outside the top 10. Obviously, a guy like Chris Letang can, continue his production and possibly end up in this top 10 as time goes by. But for right now, I just feel like he's a little bit on the outside looking in. So let's go ahead and begin. Number 10 on my list is Sergei Gonchar. Gonchar played 5 years with the Penguins, 322 games, 54 goals, 205 assists, a total of 259 points. Was a member of the 2008-2009 Stanley Cup team, and played also on the 2007-2008 Stanley Cup final team. Now he is a member of the Pittsburgh Penguins coaching staff. One of the best defensive coaches, in my opinion, in the league. Has really been able to revive a few careers. So that in part has swayed my opinion as to why I think Sergei Gonchar is a top 10 Penguin of all time. Number 9 on my list is Mark Recchi. Mark Recchi spent a couple of stints with Pittsburgh here. From 88 to 92, was traded at the deadline in the 91-92 season, but was a member of the 90-91 Stanley Cup team. Then he came back in 2004 and was with the Penguins again for the 2008-2009 Stanley Cup team. Sorry, no, he was with the 2007-2008 team. So in 7 years, played 389 games, 154 goals, 231 assists, total of 385 points with the Penguins. He's got about 1,533 points in his career. Just recently elected to the Hall of Fame, and is now a member of the Penguins coaching staff as well, as an assistant coach. So could see him possibly getting a look as a head coach down the road. Time will tell, but he was a great mentor through the early years of Sidney Crosby, Evgeny Malkin's career. Kind of really helped mold those guys into leaders they are today. So I like what he done in that regards. Obviously a huge part of the 90-91 Stanley Cup team. Number 8 on my list is Tom Barrasso. Tom Barrasso spent 12 years with the Penguins. Played in 460 games, 226 wins, 153 losses, 53 ties or overtime losses, 896 save percentage, 327 goals against average. Obviously, those numbers are a little bit inflated due to the era that he played in. But all in all, through his time in the playoffs with the Penguins, was a huge success, carrying the team to both the 91 and 92 Stanley Cup champions. Won the Calder Trophy with the Buffalo Sabres in 1984, and also won the Vezina that year. So, as well as a Jennings Award in '85. So he had a great career. Obviously, most notably with the Penguins in the 2 Stanley Cups. Number 7 on my list is Ron Francis. This is a guy that could have been higher on the list, I think, except for his shorter term with the Penguins. His overall career, I think puts him in the conversation of top 10 or 15 players of all time. But for his time with the Penguins, 533 games played, 164 goals, 449 assists, total of 613 points in just 8 years. So obviously phenomenal production. Second line center for them in the 91-92 Stanley Cup teams. And he was kind of that final piece in 90-91 that brought the team together and helped mold them into a championship caliber team when he was traded at the deadline from Hartford to Pittsburgh. It's one of the most memorable trades moments in NHL history. Number 6 on my list is Marc-Andre Fleury. 13 years with the Penguins, 691 games played, 536 starts, 375 wins, 216 losses, 68 losses or overtime losses, 912 save percentage, and a 2.58 goals against average. Obviously, he was a member of 3 Stanley Cup teams, the starting goaltender for the 2008-2009 Stanley Cup team, a huge part in the 2016-17 Stanley Cup run, winning the first 2 rounds of the playoffs, including the shutout in Game 7 against Washington in the second round. So he was a huge part of the Penguins organization. He was kind of the starting piece for the turnaround of the franchise at the beginning of the 2000s when he was drafted number 1 overall in 2003. Number 5 on my list is Paul Coffey. Paul Coffey spent 5 years with the Pittsburgh Penguins, 331 games played, 108 goals, 332 assists, total of 440 points. Obviously, it was a short tenure in Pittsburgh, but he was the anchor for that defensive unit in Pittsburgh during the 91-92 Stanley Cup runs, and was obviously a huge part of the Edmonton Stanley Cups that they won during his time there with Mark Messier and Wayne Gretzky. This is a guy who he was such a good skater that you could put him out on the ice with guys like Gretzky, Lemieux, Messier, because he was such a good skater, able to move the puck and help make plays for those big name superstars. He's a guy that spent most of his career playing around great players, and for me, Paul Coffey, he's my all-time favorite Pittsburgh Penguin. He's one of my first memories as a hockey fan was when Paul Coffey came to the Pittsburgh Penguins in 1988 or in '87, and just he helped get me into hockey, and he's the reason that I still love hockey today. Number 4 on my list is Evgeny Malkin. Evgeny Malkin, 784 games played, 370 goals, 560 assists, total of 930 points. This is probably going to be a milestone year for Evgeny Malkin. I could very easily see him getting 30 goals to get the 400 goals, getting the 40 assists to get the 600 assists, and getting 70 points to get to 1,000 career points. And I think that would probably cement his place as a first ballot Hall of Famer, even though I think when you talk to a lot of people, you will see that he probably is one of the current players that's probably easily in the first ballot conversation right now. He has one Hart Trophy, Calder Trophy, won the Pearson, the Ross Trophy twice, has a Conn Smythe, just all the individual accolades that you could accrue in your career, other than the Rocket Richard. I thought he was going to have a shot at that last year, but kind of just missed out. But Evgeny Malkin has had a great career. He's been a cornerstone for the Penguins. I don't know if Sidney Crosby is who he is without Evgeny Malkin on the team, and I don't know that Evgeny Malkin is who he is without Sidney Crosby on the team. I think these guys just complement each other so well that I don't know that either one of them would be where they are without the other. Number 3 on my list is Jaromir Jagr. Jaromir Jagr played 11 years with the Pittsburgh Penguins, played 806 games, 439 goals, 640 assists, 1,079 points. Obviously a member of the 91-92 Stanley Cup championship teams, multiple Art Ross trophies. I think 1, 2, 3, 4 Art Ross trophies during his time with the Penguins. Many-time All-Star, just a phenomenal player all around, and he was a huge reason that that 91-92 back-to-back Stanley Cup run happened. And he done a fantastic job during Mario Lemieux's absence to carry the team and keep the team relevant while Mario Lemieux was recovering from his Hodgkins and recovering from his back injury time. Just, you know, it's hard to argue with Jaromir Jagr as number 3 on this list. I think, given time, I may bump Malkin above Jaromir Jagr, but, I mean, both of them are phenomenal players, and you got to kind of feel blessed to have a franchise where you got guys like these on your roster. Number 2 on my list, Sidney Crosby. 864 games played, 411 goals, 705 assists, 1,116 points. I would say, you know, 1,200 points is very possible this year for him. You know, it's really hard to argue in how you look at the top 2 guys on this list. Sidney Crosby had the weight of the NHL coming out of the lockout and the weight of the Penguins' struggling franchise. There was obviously conversations about whether or not the Penguins would remain in Pittsburgh after the lockout. We had some down years there. Attendance was struggling, but to get a guy like Crosby in, to carry that extra burden and to be able to live up to all that hype that was placed upon him, that's just something that, you know, is very hard to do, and kudos to both him and Alexander Ovechkin for carrying that burden and making the NHL what it is today. Number 1 on this list is Mario Lemieux. 915 games played, 690 goals, 1,033 assists, total of 1,723 points. You know, Conn Smythes, Hart trophies, Pearson Awards, Art Rosses, everything. I mean, he's got a trophy cabinet that's just filled to the brim. Obviously one of the greatest players of all time, and to me, he is representative of what the Penguins organization is. To me, he is the Pittsburgh Penguin. You could rip the logo off the chest and put Mario Lemieux's face on it, and nobody would notice the difference because he is a Penguin. And then coming in after he retired, buying a piece of the franchise to make sure that they stayed in Pittsburgh. Just an amazing person within the community, on the ice, off the ice, just one of the greatest people of all time. And to me, he's the greatest Penguin of all time. So let me know in the comments below, who is your top 10 Penguins of all time? Who did I leave off the list that you thought deserved a spot? Who did you think maybe I ranked a little bit too high or too low? Let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Follow me on all the social medias listed in the description below. And until we see you next time, have a good day.